What's up, everybody? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 80, Grant Dawson versus Bobby King Green. Looking forward to that. And coming off of a week off, man. You know, I'm a week ahead of everybody else, so everybody else's week off is this week. Mine was last week, and feeling refreshed, man. Feeling ready to get back on it. It was nice. I didn't even watch the Contender Series, you know, last week. I took a complete time off from MMA and UFC and all that stuff. Yeah, because it just your brain gets clogged up for a while, man. You know, that's all you do all the time. You know, doing one of these channels is watch fights and break down, you know, cards and all that stuff. And so it's nice to have a week off, man. And as far as the result of the last few cards, man, a UFC Fizzy versus Gamrot, that card, I had one play that hit, one play that didn't hit. Nothing really to talk about there. Pretty much broke even on the card. Had a play on Ryan Battle, and that hit. And then I had a 2-fight parlay on Usman and Argueta, and Argueta killed that. So yeah, I came out. I might have lost like $100 or something. I'm not sure. That was a card that I really didn't even really want to bet on. You know, I said that in my video that there wasn't a whole lot of, you know, real strong, confident picks on that card that I liked. So yeah, whatever. You know, I came out of that, you know, all right, pretty much even. I don't know if I even really lost anything on that card. I think I broke even because I had a small parlay that I built that hit too, so I'd have to do the math or whatever. But either way, not a lot to talk about on that card. As far as the UFC Noche card, Shevchenko versus Grasso 2. I did have this ended up being my only big play on the card. This 2-fight parlay of Kopylov and Zellhuber, and it ended up cashing for $2,244. I think I had like $800 on it or something like that, and ended up being the only big play on the card. I had some smaller parlays that I made, but I don't ever put a lot on those, and I don't remember who killed those for me. Can't remember. Somebody killed them all for me either way. But yeah, man. So, and as far as the main event goes on the UFC Noche card, I think we all know that, you know, that wasn't a 10-8 round in the 5th round. Somebody should have won that fight. You know, I had it scored for Shevchenko, personally, and but I don't agree with that 10-8 round in the 5th. I did think that Grasso won that round, but should have been a 10-9, and if it had been a 10-9, Shevchenko would have won. So unfortunately, they'll have to do it again, I guess, or maybe they won't. I don't know. That's a pretty crappy way for you know, Grasso to retain her title, you know, on a fight like that in a draw, which they do that. It seems to happen a lot, man. Don't you ever notice that? Like whenever Frankie Edgar had a title, he had, you know, 3 fights with, you know, what was that guy's name? Man, I can't remember, but it happens a lot, man. And it's always on these damn main event fights that stupid shit happens like that, you know, and just like the main event of Rafael Fiziev throwing out his knee, you know, in the fight, and, you know, not being able to continue, and, you know, Gamrot running around cheering like he did something. I mean, Rafael messed up his own leg kicking. I could understand if, you know, he broke his leg on Gamrot's, you know, elbow or whatever, but it was actually up on top of the knee where the injury was, which, if it's anything like the knee injury that I've been dealing with for 9 months, it's probably pretty bad. But yeah, it's always some stupid stuff like that, and it tends to happen a lot in main events for some reason. Not really sure why. But yeah, anyways, man, let's get into this card. And as always, man, please like and subscribe. It'll help me out a lot. You know, I'm glad to be a guy putting out videos this early because this is my time to shine. There's not going to be any more videos coming out this week other than mine probably. So this is a good time for me to shine and do my thing early for everybody else. And yeah, like I said, please like and subscribe, man. And if you don't want to watch my videos, you just want to see my picks and my bets, you can go to my social medias. My Instagram and my TikTok are both highkick_fight picks. And there's a group on Facebook, High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook. It's pretty easy to find, and also the show is available on Spotify and Pandora and iTunes and all your major streaming services and stuff like that. So now that I got all that out of the way, this is one of those cards it's got some good fights on it, man. There's quite a few fights that I've been looking for. Not as many strong leans on this card as I would have liked, but there are some what I feel are good picks on this card. Underdog play that I like on here as well. And as far as the only fights we lost were Daniel Pineda versus Kushin Askabov. That would have been a good fight. Montana De La Rosa was supposed to fight Stephanie Egger originally. But yeah, man, let's get into this card, guys. First up, we got Montana De La Rosa taking on J.J. Aldrich. And De La Rosa is 28 years old. She's 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. She is 12-8-1 and 5-4-1 in the UFC. And at the time that I was doing my notes on this card, there wasn't any odds up for this matchup yet. But let me just check real quick. Yeah, they don't have the lines up for this one yet. So, I guess I could check Bet Online real quick too while I'm at it. No, they don't have it up on there either. So, but anyways, De La Rosa is. I do guarantee you that Aldrich is going to be a big favorite in this spot. She usually is in most of her fights. But yeah, most of Rosa's wins have been by submission. Her best win was over Ariana Lipski, which is somebody that beat J.J. Aldrich, so there's that to think about. But it's been kind of a weird win-loss cycle with De La Rosa until she lost her last two fights in a row. But those losses were to tough competition. Macy Barber, who's on a good run, Tatiana Suarez, undefeated. She's going to have a half-inch reach advantage in this fight. Great jiu-jitsu, obviously. Dangerous off of her back. Good body lock takedowns. Nice elbows from top position. Good ground and pound all around, pretty much. She may be the better grappler here, most likely, but and I do think that both of the people that beat De La Rosa would also beat Aldrich, in my opinion. So I don't look too bad on her I'm not looking too bad on her for those two losses. Definitely tough competition. And I say that because, Aldrich always ends up being a really big favorite in her matchups, and I haven't really been able to figure out, why. I mean, I understand she's good, but I don't know. That's just me, I guess. But if Rosa can get the takedowns here, she can win this fight for sure. Rosa has a more traditional grappling style approach to her grappling, rather than versus a wrestling approach, really, like Tatiana Suarez. And yeah, that showed in her last fight with Tatiana Suarez. Suarez was the better wrestler, and she was able to dominate De La Rosa on the ground. And that's kind of how people have to fight, De La Rosa to beat her, is kind of hold her up against the cage and try to get their takedowns going so she doesn't get started with hers, But yeah, more of a traditional, grappling style with her versus the wrestling background that a lot of fighters have. But that's not how J.J. Aldrich fights. She likes to stick to her boxing and fight on the feet. So I'll be curious. She did show a little bit of grappling in her last fight, but I am going to be curious to see how she approaches this fight. And J.J. Aldrich is 31 years old. She's 5'5" with a 67.5-inch reach. She is 12-6 and 8-5 in the UFC, and she has 3 wins by knockout, no wins by submission. She has been submitted 2 times. She's coming off a finish win over Na Ling. But I don't really find that all that impressive, honestly, because Ling has never won a fight in the UFC, and she's been finished in all of her fights in the UFC. So it doesn't shock me that Aldrich was able to get the win and the finish there. But I guess it was a good warm-up fight for JJ to get her back in the win column. She has really good boxing. She's going to have the advantage in the striking in this fight for sure. Throws nice combinations, good counters. Did get taken down twice by Ling in her last fight, but she got back to her feet pretty quickly. She also got her back taken as well, but she stayed calm and was able to pull through it and end up in a dominant position herself. And I do think Rosa is going to be the better grappler here. I think that if Na Ling could get JJ down, possibly Rosa could get her down too. But I am going to be going with Aldrich to win this fight. I think she's going to put out the superior volume and the striking on the feet. And I don't think Rosa will be able to keep her down long enough to get the win or win the decision. I could see her having success and getting a few takedowns, but ultimately I think Aldrich is going to win on damage and volume. And I don't think De La Rosa will be able to keep her down very long if she gets the takedown. But I will be watching for a live betting opportunity. You know, if Rosa does start getting the takedowns early, maybe you could, hop on the live betting and get a good price on De La Rosa. But for now, it's going to be J.J. Aldrich to win by decision. Next up, we got Karolina Kowalkiewicz taking on Diana Belbita. And Carolina is 37 years old, 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. She is 15-7 and 8-7 in the UFC, and she's a minus 165 favorite. Yeah, she's fought the better competition by far between these two girls. If we go back and look at her record real quick, she had a bit of a bad run, man. For a bit there, lost quite a few fights in a row. She's fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Rose Namajunas, Randa Marcos, Felice Herring twice. She fought Alexa Grasso, the current champ, Jessica Andrade, Jan, Jessica Panay. And yeah, so I mean, although those were losses, that's definitely facing tough competition. And she took them to, decisions in quite a few of those, other than Jessica Andrade was able to finish her. But yeah, so I mean, she's very tough, and it's very tough, man. She's getting up there in age, honestly, but I thought she was done when she lost those 5 fights in a row, man. But she's bounced back. She's got 3 wins in a row now. Not the best of competition she's been taking on, but she has looked very good. She's very well rounded. She's really improved on her ground game. One of her latest wins was by submission, which is something she wasn't typically known for, back in the day as much. I'm very happy that the UFC gave her some fights that she could win, and she's getting a second run in the UFC, man. So she uses her jab very well. She's a good kickboxer. That's what she was known for earlier in her career. She was the KSW champion over in Poland. Very fast hands, great counter striking, throws a lot of volume, great calf kicks, good takedown defense. It's definitely a lot better than it used to be anyway. She's been showing a lot better takedown defense, and she doubles up her right hand a lot, out of the orthodox stance, which is, she was doing that a lot in her last fight, which is, usually you see people doubling up the jab with the lead hand, but she was doubling up, with her power hand, the straight right down the middle. Very precise with her shots, man. She's got 1 win by knockout, 3 wins by submission, mostly decisions on her record. So I don't believe she's going to be getting a finish in this fight if she wins. And she's taking on Diana Belbita. She is 27 years old, 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. She's 15-7 and 2-3 in the UFC, and she's a plus 135 underdog. And she will have a good bit of height and reach advantage in this fight going for her. She hasn't looked very good in the UFC. Her wins have been over girls who have struggled to get wins in the UFC. She does have more finish wins on her record than Kowalkiewicz. 6 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, but that was all before the UFC. And, she did look a lot improved in her last fight. She has a judo background and kickboxing as well. She's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, but honestly, man, I don't see anywhere in this matchup where she's going to have the advantage in this fight, unless she's able to use her height and reach, very well, and maybe pick apart Kowalkiewicz from the outside. Kowalkiewicz has fought the way tougher competition, has the better striking, and I believe she has the better grappling as well. So there's not much I can say, in this instance for Belbita, unfortunately, because I do see Kowalkiewicz being better everywhere the fight goes, and I'm going to take Kowalkiewicz to win by decision. Next up, we got Nate Maness taking on Matheus Mendonca. And Nate Maness is 32 years old, 5'10", with a 72-inch reach. He is 14-3 and 3-2 in the UFC. He's a plus 200 underdog. Yeah, I don't agree with this line, really, man. The 2 people that Nate has lost to in the UFC are both really tough Russian guys. I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov is probably going to be a champion one day, and who was the other guy he lost to? Tagir Lumbekov, when he went down to 125 to try it out, down there, and looked like it was a little bit too much for him to be cutting that much weight as big as he is. Nate's going to have a half-inch reach advantage in this fight, so not much there. He is very tall for the weight class, though. He's fought the tougher competition. He has the better wins. I'm glad he's going back up to 135. He was trying to cut just too much weight to get down to 125. He looked like a skeleton, in that, so he's very powerful. He knocked out Tony Gravely, which is very impressive. He has 5 wins by knockout, 3 wins by submission. I do have a lot of trouble understanding the odds on this one, man. The fight will probably play out on the feet, and Maness often has a bad first round and comes back and gets the win. He's done that in several fights in the UFC as well. And, throws a real nice uppercut, dangerous in the pocket. He's only been knocked out one time, and it was a side kick to the face by Taylor Lapilus, and that was a while back. So, but when he does land clean, he's really hurts guys badly. I mean, his wins may not have been the prettiest because he eats a lot of shots, but the power is very serious. So I don't think Nate should be a favorite in this spot. I can understand why he's an underdog, but he shouldn't be this big of an underdog in my opinion. Usually his opponents have to wrestle him and hold him up against the cage to get the wins. And Mendonca really doesn't fight that way. I mean, I guess he could if he wanted to, but he strikes for the most part. Maness doesn't, really check leg kicks. Hopefully that's something he's worked on because Mendonca has very good leg kicks. It's hard to pick against a guy with Maness's kind of power, though, man. And I'm really torn on this fight. Still haven't quite made a decision on it yet. I'm doing it. I've been going back and forth on this one. He's taking on Matheus Mendonca. He is 24 years old, 5'6", with a 71.5-inch reach. He is 10-1 and 0-1 in the UFC. He's a minus 260 favorite. Now, this guy is very good, man. I don't want y'all to think that I'm downplaying how good he is. But the fact is that a lot of people, they say, oh, he did good against, Basharat, which is what I thought until I went back and watched the fight. And, because although he didn't get finished in that fight, he really didn't get anything going in that fight at all. Now, Basharat is very good. So, but I feel like they're putting a lot in on that fight, and we haven't seen him get a win yet in the UFC. So he is well-rounded, lots of first-round finishes on his record, great Muay Thai, very wild, pressures guys, a whole lot. Also very powerful, doesn't take a whole lot of chance, or he throws a whole lot of unorthodox stuff, that leave openings, a lot of spinning stuff and stuff like that. I think he has the cleaner striking possibly of these two. He's probably more well-rounded, but he's not a Russian wrestler, so I don't think he's going to be able to get Nate down and keep him down. I do think Mendonca is the better fighter, but if the fight plays out on the feet, Nate definitely has a chance. And, all it takes is one shot from him. So, this probably shouldn't be that hard of a pick for me. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that think I'm stupid for leaning towards Nate so much. But, Nate may have the cardio advantage. Mendonca did seem to slow down quite a bit after the first round in the Basharat fight. And we also have to consider that Mendonca, he was fighting Basharat, who's undefeated, so there is that. But I think if Mendonca don't get a finish in the first round, he may lose this fight. And I guess it's just the big price on him that's making me question myself because I really want to go with Nate Maness. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to give me shit for that. But, he's only been beaten by tough wrestlers, man. And even though he might get beat up a bit in the first round, he usually comes back and gets a knockout, So, man, I'm torn on this one. Still quite haven't made the decision yet. I'm going to take Maness to win. Am I brave enough to put money on it? No, I'm not. But for some reason, I got a feeling that he might land a big shot late and, maybe win the second and third round or maybe get a late finish. Yeah, so I'm going to pick him, man. I'm not brave enough to put money on it, though. So next up, we got Chris Gutierrez taking on Montel Jackson. And Chris is 32 years old, 5'9", with a 67-inch reach. He is 19-4-2 and 7-2-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 160 underdog. Yeah, this is very good matchmaking. I'm a big fan of both of these guys, especially Chris. I've always been a big fan of his. Chris's best win was over Frankie Edgar, but that was a Frankie Edgar who was at the end of his career, who pretty much should have retired by that point already. And looking at the rest of his record, all of his other wins have been over guys who have been cut from the UFC now, pretty much, or guys that are on 3-fight losing streaks. So, which is something I didn't really think about before his last fight, when he ended up losing to Pedro Munoz. There in that fight, the level of competition that he's been facing kind of showed, and Munoz is a very good fighter, been around a long time. And, just going back, I really realized that Chris has been fighting a lot of guys that didn't make it in the UFC or never got a win in the UFC or have been cut. But besides that, man, he's looked really good in most of his fights. His leg kicks are one of his best weapons. He's finished guys with leg kicks. Has great striking. He's constantly changing angles and stances. Does a really good job of feigning and bringing out a reaction, from his opponents to set up his strikes. And pretty good footwork, nice head movement. He has 9 wins by knockout, 1 win by submission. Very well rounded, man. We have seen him out grappled a couple of times, out wrestled, which is something that Montel is probably going to look to do in this fight, at least for the first round or so, and kind of wear on Gutierrez. Um, he's taking on Montel Jackson. He's 31 years old, 5'10 with a 75.5-inch reach. He is 13-2 and 7-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 195 favorite. And yeah, he's going to have an 8.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. And I think Montel is going to have the power advantage as far as with the hands. Most of Chris's finish wins in the UFC have been by like a spinning attack or like a jumping knee, stuff like that, not just straight up, boxing with the hands. Montel has good grappling and submissions. He's got very long arms. He's good with his chokes. I think that's how he's going to want to approach this fight, at least. Like I said, he's going to want to control Gutierrez up against the cage and kind of wear on him a little bit, slow him down or get him down, and so Montel he has like giant heavyweight sized hands. He's very, very good and strong with his wrist control in the clinch. A lot of guys, they struggle with that against him. And, he's very good at beating guys up against the cage. He has good sweeps, good submission defense. He's never been submitted. And, his takedown defense has improved a whole lot since early in his career in the UFC. And, very good at counter striking. On the feet, man, I think on the feet in this fight, he needs to stay to the outside, use his reach, pick Chris apart from the outside. But I think he really should try to get Chris down, at least for the first round, and wear on him and kind of beat him up against the cage, like I said, and tire him out. I don't agree with this line. I think this fight should be closer to a pick'em, but I am going to be going with Montel Jackson to win. I'm taking him to win by decision. But my only worry from, Jackson in this matchup is that he does stand really heavy on his lead leg. So he is open for leg kicks. So hopefully he's worked on that, and hopefully he can stay on the outside and avoid them and use his long reach. If he's using his long reach, man, Gutierrez is going to have trouble landing those leg kicks. But I am going to be taking Montel Jackson to win by decision. Next up, we got Johnny Munoz Jr. taking on aoriqileng. There's a lot of confusion on how to say his name. Sometimes they say it separate. Sometimes they say it together. I don't know. But Johnny Munoz Jr. is 30 years old. He's 5'9 with a 71-inch reach. He is 12-3 and 2-3 in the UFC, and he's a plus 110 underdog. Yeah, he looked really bad in his last fight, man. He was just trying to pull guard, couldn't hang on the feet. Was just getting beat everywhere the fight went, in that matchup. And no one wants to put money on a guy and see him go out there and pull guard and scoot around on his butt, trying to get guys to go into his guard. His cardio didn't look very good at all in that fight, man. And he's known for his jiu-jitsu, great submissions, aggressive off of his back. But, we've seen time and time again that you have to be good at more than jiu-jitsu in the UFC. Like that Crone Gracie fight, it's terrible, to watch. His wins have been over guys who couldn't get wins in the UFC. Jamie Simmons and Ludovic Shalinian. Neither of them have won a fight in the UFC. He's gonna have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. He has 7 wins by submission. After watching his last fight, I'm not even sure that his takedowns are all that good. Because he couldn't get the takedowns really on Daniel Santos. I mean, he's only been able to get down guys with really bad takedown defense. So he's pretty good at jiu-jitsu, man, and doesn't seem like he's good at much else. This is a winnable fight for him, though. I mean, his aoriqileng has been submitted 3 times. That's his weakness. He has been taken down quite a bit. So maybe Munoz stands a chance. But he's taking on aoriqileng. He is 30 years old, 5'7 with a 69.3-inch reach. And he is 24-11 and 2-3 in the UFC. And this guy's a very tough, very exciting guy. 9 wins by knockout on his record. He is coming off a knockout loss to Zahabi, but I believe that Zahabi is way better than everyone thinks. I had a play on Zahabi as an underdog in that fight, and it paid off big time. aoriqileng has fought the tougher competition out of these two, in my opinion, but his wins have also been over guys that haven't been able to get wins in the UFC. So there's that to think about too. He will have the striking advantage in this fight, the power advantage on the feet for sure. Has a ton of experience. If he keeps it on the feet, it's his fight. But he has a real nice left hook and in tight and throws nice uppercuts. He was hitting Jay Perrin with several of those uppercuts. Dropped him a few times in that fight. Throws nice combinations, very good at sliding just out of range and creating angles and stepping back in with the counters. I understand why everybody on Tapology is going with Munoz because of Aoriqileng's takedown defense hasn't looked good or whatever, and Munoz has good submissions. But I can't go with a guy who looked as bad as Munoz did in his last fight. And I understand why people are everyone on Tapology is going with Munoz, but I'm taking Aoriqileng to win this fight by decision. I think he wins on damage, and I hope he knocks Munoz out. But I don't know that Munoz has ever been finished like that. I don't think he's been. Oh yeah, he was knocked out by Tony Gravely, so maybe. But I'll take Aoriqileng to win by decision. Next up, we got Kanako Murata taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. And Murata is 30 years old, 5'1" with a 62-inch reach. She is 12-2 and 1-1 in the UFC, and she's a minus 235 favorite. And she hasn't fought in over 2 years, and that's why I find this line kind of crazy, because at least Demopoulos has been active and has 3 wins in the UFC. Murata was knocked out by Verna Jandiroba in her last fight, who is a grappler, not a striker. Not known for her striking, so that was surprising. Murata has 2 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. She had a pretty good career over in Ryzen before the UFC, and she's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. Has a wrestling background, also a judo background. Has nice trip takedowns, good body lock takedowns. Pretty much all she does is go for the takedowns and wrestle, and hold people down. And I'm tired of seeing people just lay on top of their opponents and get wins. I mean, that doesn't mean that I think wrestling is boring. There are some fighters like Arman Sarukian that do a lot of ground and pound damage and get submissions. That's exciting. That's fun to watch. Or when both guys are good grapplers and they're back and forth sweeping each other and reversing positions. That's exciting to watch. I love that. But yeah, man, I'm just like, I don't know. Bryce Mitchell, he won that fight legitimately, but he didn't do any damage at all to Dan. He did get in a couple of dominant positions, but he really didn't do a lot of damage in those positions. So I do agree that Bryce Mitchell won that fight, but I don't know, man. It's crazy because Dan would beat him up, the first half of the round, and then, do all the damage, and then Mitchell would, get mounted or whatever. But I don't know. It's just a thought I had, that I just tired of seeing stuff like that. And it's why those guys that, like Bryce Mitchell or even Grant Dawson, the guys that fight that way, they end up having to win, a ton of fights before they even get talked about in a title shot because, they're not getting a lot of finishes. Or I guess Grant Dawson's got a few submissions, but I don't know, man. It's just, it's crazy that I think they deserve it, man. If they win the fights, if Mitchell won however many fights in a row, he should be fighting, the higher level competition sooner than he was probably. But I don't know. I guess it's because, the people don't find them exciting, as other fighters that are knocking people out or stuff like that, that they don't get the title shot. So if you win fights, you win fights. I get that. So, she's taking on Vanessa Demopoulos. She is 35 years old. 5'2" with a 59.5-inch reach. She is 9-5 and 3-2 in the UFC, and she's a plus 190 underdog. So there's a big part of me that wants to pick Vanessa here, strictly based on her being more active and having more wins in the UFC and more fights in the UFC as well. What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments. Am I wrong for kind of leaning that way or whatever? So now. I've never thought highly of Vanessa Demopoulos, but she has found ways to win fights, man, surprisingly, and has nice jiu-jitsu, tricky arm bars. I think she'll have the striking advantage here, but the power advantage is going to be going to Murata, and then the wrestling advantage as well goes to Murata, obviously. I'm going to go against myself here, and I'm going to pick Murata to win, to use her wrestling and get a decision, but I don't like going with somebody who's been out 2 years and whatever, but I do think that if she was as good as she was, a few years ago, the last time she fought, or when she fought Randa Marcos, her other win in the UFC, she'll be able to get Demopoulos down and control her and get a decision win. So I'm going to take Murata to win by decision. Next up, we got Alex Morono taking on Joaquin Buckley. And Morono is 33 years old, 5'11 with a 72-inch reach. He is 23-8 and 12-5 in the UFC, and he's a plus 151 underdog. So Morono is very good, man. A lot better than people give him credit for, I think. Um, he's got a lot of good wins in the UFC, man. If we look at his record, um, he's got wins over. He's got wins over. I mean, he beat Matthew Simmelsberger. That was an impressive win for him. He was winning the. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. But he beat Max Griffin, Keon Song, Josh Berkman. He's had some decent wins, man. He has had some losses, to some big power punchers, but definitely a lot better than people think. So, he's got 6 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. Good jiu-jitsu. He has been knocked out a couple times by big power punchers like Chaos Williams and Santiago Ponzinibbio. But he was looking real good in the Ponzinibbio fight until he got caught in the last round, man. He was very close to winning that fight. He has a really weird style and stance, and kind of weird timing. He's coming off a win over Tim Means, but I think Tim was actually winning that fight, before he got submitted. But either way, Morono's looked very impressive. He's constantly improving. This fight can honestly go either way, in my opinion. Morono stays really light on his toes. He's always bouncing and moving around, and he has really good speed on his punches, and kind of tricky power because it doesn't look like he's putting a lot into the shots, and he hurts people with them. He's very good at making the reads and switching things up, and to land on his opponents, and he's very well rounded. He can do it all, man, and he's over at a good camp at Fortis MMA. This is another one that I don't agree with the line on. This could be a very, very close fight, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if Morono won this fight. He's taking on Joaquin Buckley. He's 29 years old, 5'10 with a 76-inch reach. He is 16-6 and 6-4 in the UFC, and he's a minus 180 favorite. And he's got 12 wins by knockout. He's never won or lost by submission. Very powerful, very fast, very explosive. Has definitely looked good since he moved down to 170. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's younger. He's always improving. I like both of these guys a lot. Buckley's power has really carried him really far in his career. And he throws nice combinations, really mixes up his attacks very well. Lots of kicks to all levels, good at slipping punches and landing those big hooks. Puts out a ton of volume as well. And, to see how good his striking is, you just go watch, the Chris Curtis fight. The first round of that fight, he looked amazing. Best we'd ever seen him. I know he lost the fight, but he was looking great in the first round, and he landed a lot of good shots. He was going to the body, the head, 3-4 punch combinations, mixing his kicks in well. If he can fight like that guy, if he can fight that way against Morono and use that pressure, he will definitely overwhelm Morono, in my opinion. And that's why I'm going to be taking Buckley to win. I think he's going to land that big shot, but he needs to move forward and walk Morono down and really pressure him and not give him a chance to get started. I could also see a world where Buckley, gets tired in the third round and Morono, takes over and possibly wins, that way, maybe gets a submission or something. But I'm going to be going with Buckley here. I really like what I've seen out of him. He's one of my favorite fighters, and I'm going to take him to win by knockout round 2. Next up, we got Felipe Lins taking on Ion Cutelaba. And Felipe Lins is 38 years old. He's 6'2 with a 78-inch reach. He is 17-5 and 3-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 110 underdog. Yeah, Lins just beat Maxim Grishin, who's a very tough guy, man, and very experienced guy as well. And Lins has looked real good down at 205 where he belongs. He did lose a couple fights up at heavyweight, wasn't a good look, but he looks great at 205, man. And he fought real smart in his last fight. He controlled Maxim up against the cage, and it's kind of wore on him. Even got a few takedowns, and he didn't seem to get tired at all in that fight, man. So, and that's, I think, what he's going to want to do in the first round of this fight. Cutelaba has notoriously bad cardio and, also sticks his head in guillotines a lot. So look for that. But, Lins has heavy hands, 9 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission, goes to the body a lot with his strikes, to set up the headshots. He's going to have a 3-inch reach advantage. And if he survives the early onslaught from Cutelaba, he wins this fight. He was a heavyweight champ over in the PFL, man. He's a lot better than people give him credit for. He's the better striker in this fight, fast hands. I think he's going to have the speed advantage here. Definitely because he throws the cleaner, straighter shots. Cutelaba throws a lot of hooks and stuff like that. He's real wild. And I find it crazy that all this money is coming in on Cutelaba. I mean, I guess he beat Tanner Boser, but, you know, well, I mean, I think Tanner Boser's only won like one fight in the UFC or two. I don't remember what his record is, but, you know, Cutelaba got finished 3 times in a row before that. So I don't understand all the money coming in on Cutelaba. You know, Lenz was the favorite originally. So, but yeah, he's taking on Ion Cutelaba, 29 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. He's 17-9-1 and 6-8-1 in the UFC. And you know, I guess I forgot to put the odds on him. He's like a minus 120 favorite. Sorry, I forgot. So Ion is a very tough guy, very exciting to watch. You know, he's never in a boring fight. But he has lost 8 times in the UFC, man, and he's been submitted 4 times in the UFC. So he's always live for a knockout. He's very powerful and explosive for the first round or so. Well, first half of the first round or whatever. Has 13 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. He's very wild, man, you know, with his striking. He starts very fast. He has a Greco-Roman wrestling background. He does have good wrestling, man, but when he uses it, he gets pretty tired, man. If he doesn't get the early finish, you know, he got the takedowns against Kennedy and Nchekwu and then gassed, and Nchekwu was able to beat him. So I do like his style. I find, you know, he's very exciting. I love how crazy he is, but I got to go with the guy with the better cardio here and the better skills. I'm going to be taking Felipe wins. I'm going to take him to win by knockout round 2. Next up, we got Bill Algeo taking on Alexander Hernandez. And Bill Algeo is 34 years old, 6 foot tall with a 73-inch reach. He is 17-7 and 4-3 in the UFC. He's a minus 148 favorite. Yeah, so Algeo's coming off a win over TJ Brown, which, you know, TJ is kind of like a hit and miss. You know, there are times when TJ really impresses me, but most of the time, you know, I think he turned a corner or whatever, and then he goes out and loses, you know, unfortunately. But one thing about Algeo we saw in the Andre Fili fight is he's open for head kicks because he holds his hands so low. Fili hit him with quite a few of those in that fight. And, you know, I have no idea how that fight was a split decision win. I thought Fili, you know, clearly won that fight, but whatever. So, you know, Bill's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage in this fight. He's kind of got like a karate-type style. I was very impressed with his win over Joe Anderson Brito. He kind of survived until Brito was gassed out and was able to get a decision win. Other than that, not the best wins in the UFC. He's probably fought the better competition out of these two, you know, for sure. But he can turn it on, man, and be a killer or whatever. But you know, like he did whenever he was fighting Herbert Burns. You know, Herbert Burns gassed out horribly, and Algeo was just killing him. It was pretty ridiculous. But you know, I thought coming into this, you know, that I don't know, man. He has 4 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission. He may have the cardio advantage out of these two. Hernandez is coming back down to 145 pounds here, which I don't understand because he's had more success at lightweight. You know, Bill has the better striking as far as clean punches of these two probably, and the better kicks. You know, he's very accurate with his shots. And, yeah, I just don't understand why Hernandez is really trying to go down to 145 again, you know, after he won his last fight at 155. But he's taking on Alexander Hernandez. He's 31 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. He is 14-6 and 6-5 in the UFC. He's a plus 125 underdog. And he's going to have the power advantage in this fight for sure. He usually starts pretty strong. He's got 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. Originally, I thought I might go with Hernandez here until I, you know, looked into it and I realized he was going back down to 145 again. Because he did not look good in his last fight at 145 against Billy Quarantillo. He came out, landed a few good shots, and then just got overwhelmed and finished. So if he got his cardio in check, you know, which, you know, his cardio did look better in his last fight. He didn't gas out early like he normally does, but once again, that fight was at 155, not 145. So I think that the weight cut is too much for him. That's just my opinion. And because of that, I don't see him being able to get the win here. He does have the skills, man, but as long as Bill makes it through the first few minutes of the fight, I think he's going to take over from there and definitely win, you know, rounds 2 and 3. I'm going to take Bill to win by 3rd round submission. I think maybe he'll catch Hernandez in a submission when he's, you know, really tired in the 3rd round, man, because that's Hernandez doesn't look very good at 145. It looks like he's cutting a lot of weight to me, man, and he looked very he didn't look good, man, at 145 his last time. So I'd like to see Hernandez win. I'm kind of more of a fan of his than I am Bill Algeo's, but I don't see him getting the win here, man. I think he needs to stay at 155, man. So next up, we got Drew Dober taking on Ricky Glenn. Should be a fun fight while it lasts. And Dober is 34 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach. He is 26-12 and 12-8 in the UFC, and he's a minus 375 favorite. Yeah, Drew's one of my favorite fighters, man. He's got excellent Muay Thai, big power in his hands, and if you didn't believe it before, him knocking out Bobby Green proved it, because Green hasn't been knocked out in a long time, and he's fought a lot of killers, so Dober must hit hard, man. And Dober has really great calf kicks. He pushes a good pace. His striking defense could be a little bit better because he does get hit quite a bit, but he does have that giant chin, and even though he might get rocked, he usually survives and comes back, to get the win. I know Frivola got him, but whatever. Frivola gets everybody. So he's been training since he was 14 years old. He was a two-time amateur Muay Thai world champion. His takedown defense could be better as well, but he's good at scrambling back up to his feet, unless he's fighting Islam Makhachev. But super tough, very respectful. Doesn't do the whole shit talking game. Seems like a really nice guy. Has a very nasty left hand to the body. Hurts guys with that. He finished Rafael Alves with that to the body, man. And yeah, so Dober has 10 wins by knockout, 9 wins by submission. He did get caught by Frivola his last time out. I wasn't surprised at all there. I could see that fight going either way, however many times these guys fight. I've never been able to see what the big deal was with Ricky Glenn. I wouldn't be surprised if Glenn landed a few shots early, but I do think Dober will eventually start landing his punches. And Ricky Glenn is 34 years old, 6 foot tall with a 70.5-inch reach. He is 22-7-2 and 4-4-1 in the UFC. And he's a plus 300 underdog. He's going to have the height advantage, but he's only going to have a half-inch reach advantage. He does have big power in his hands. 11 wins by knockout, 5 wins by submission. He's coming off a real bad knockout loss to Christos Giagos. But Glenn is, he is the only person that really ever gave Grant Dawson trouble. He took him to a draw. But he was beating the shit out of Grant Dawson in the third round of that fight. And that's why it was a draw, because he got a 10-8 in the third round. But aside from that, he had a quick knockout win over Joaquin Silva, where Silva just kind of ran into a punch head first. It was a real quick 20-second knockout. Glenn kind of does shine whenever nobody expects him to, but I do think that Dober is eventually going to land a big shot here, and I think if Christos Giagos can knock out Glenn, I think Dober can definitely knock him out as well. So I'm going to take Drew Dober to win by second round knockout. Next up, we got the co-main event. Excuse me, I'm going to grab some water. Joe Pyfer taking on Abdul Razak Alhassan. And Joe is 27 years old, 6'2", with a 75-inch reach. He's 11-2 and 2-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 350 favorite. And all but one of his wins have been by finish, 8 knockouts and 2 submissions. This is a scary fight to bet on, for me, in my opinion, because both these guys can knock out anyone. I know there's a big number beside Joe's name, but Alhassan is very serious, very, very tough guy. And, Joe's going to have the height and reach advantage, 2-inch reach advantage. Has had some, really good matchups for him so far in the UFC. Alan Amadowski, that guy hasn't got a win in the UFC. Gerald Meerschaert, he's a veteran, but, he folds under the big power shots of guys like Pyfer. So, Alhassan is a bigger threat than anyone Pyfer has faced yet. Joe doesn't rush things, man. He may not throw the most volume, but he does definitely make them count. There's a lot of pop on his shots, really nice speed on his punches. Constantly moves forward and just kind of slowly picks up the pace as the fight goes on. Likes to throw the lead uppercut, then come over with the right hand. He throws that combination a whole lot. What else? He's had a lot of quick finishes, man. He's only seen the third round one time, but he does appear to be. I think his cardio is going to hold up, in the third round. And he stays pretty active. He competes in grappling competitions as well, when he's not training for UFC fights. So, and he's younger, man. He's younger, and he's on his way up, man. So he's taking on Abdul Razak Alhassan. He's 38 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. He's 12-5 and 6-5 in the UFC, and he's a plus 280 underdog. And yeah, every single one of this guy's wins have been by knockout. He's never won or lost by submission, I don't believe. I could be wrong there. I know he's never won by submission. But where was I at? Oh yeah, so if he wants to win this fight, man, he needs to go out and do exactly what he did in his last fight against Ribeiro, Claudio Ribeiro. He needs to go out there and he needs to, hold Pyfer up against the cage and fight him in the clinch and just wear on him before he starts trying to fight on the outside and trying to strike with him. Razak is very fucking powerful. He's knocked out a lot of people. Dangerous head kicks. His nickname is Judo Thunder, so I'm assuming he has a judo background. I know he's been working on his wrestling a lot, training up at altitude, so his cardio is going to be on point. The only thing I can say, man, is he's like 38 years old now, and man, I don't know. I'm just wondering if Pyfer could get him to the ground if he wanted to. That's a smarter way to approach, alhassan rather than striking with him on the feet. We haven't really seen much of Pyfer's grappling yet. But I mean, I kind of want to pick alhassan here, man, because I know how dangerous he is, and he did look very good in his last fight. And I am going to be going with Pyfer, though, man. He's younger, he's bigger, he's on his way up, but I may not put this fight on on anything. I don't know. I haven't decided. I think I did end up putting it on my big parlay, but this fight could go either way. Both these guys could knock out anybody, so I'll take Pyfer to win by second round knockout, but I'm not super confident in that. alhassan's very dangerous. Next up, we got the main event. Grant Dawson taking on Bobby Green. Grant Dawson is 29 years old, 5'10", with a 72-inch reach. He is 21-1 and 8-0-1 in the UFC. He's a minus 375 favorite. It's an amazing record, really good record. As much as I'm not a fan of his, man, I can't tell you why. I'm just not a fan of Dawson's. He's very good at what he does, though. You got to put respect on that because he's a very good wrestler and, gets guys down and looks for the submissions. But if he doesn't get the submission, it can be a pretty boring fight a lot of the time. He has 13 wins by submission, 4 wins by knockout. Coming off a win over Damir Ismagulov, that's his best win yet. I did not see him being able to ragdoll Ismagulov like that at all. And Dawson has 13 wins by submission, 4 wins by knockout. He's coming off a win over. I already said that. Sorry. Honestly, I think his fighting style is the only reason that I think it's the only reason that he hasn't gotten talked about for a title shot yet. He has had cardio issues in the past, and we've seen him. We've never seen him go 5 rounds. This is going to be a 5-round fight, so that's something different. I think if Bobby shines at any point in this fight, it'll definitely be round 4 and 5. Dawson doesn't have good striking at all, man, but he's just an amazing wrestler, man. He gets everybody down. He's pretty much completely dominated everybody. Except for the 3rd round with Ricky Glenn, he's dominated everybody so far. So, not much more I can say about Dawson there, man. I was really impressed with the Damir Ismagulov fight. Well, I wasn't impressed because I had money on Ismagulov, so I was pissed. But I was really shocked that he was able to dominate Ismagulov, so well with the wrestling, because Ismagulov fought, Sarukian and stuff like that, and gave Sarukian a little bit of problems when he was trying to get him down. So it's pretty crazy, man. But he's taking on Bobby Green. He's 37 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach. Did I give the reach advantage on Grant? He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage if I didn't say that. I don't remember. Where was I at? Green's 37 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach. He is 30, 14-1, and 11, 9-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 290 underdog. And I'm a big Green fan, man. He's an amazing boxer. He's got some of the best head movement and striking defense that we've ever seen in the UFC. He's very good at rolling with punches and really kind of softening the blow on the strikes. Whenever he gets hit, he does roll with those punches very well. It's something that not a lot of guys do in the UFC. It's very impressive. He's got 10 wins by knockout, 9 wins by submission. Green was looking really good, in the Dober fight before he got caught. He's a very good counter striker. I will say that he's a very tricky striker as he keeps his hands down really low so you don't see the punches coming. He's very fast. He doesn't telegraph his shots at all. He fights southpaw. He can be very hard to hit. I would love to see him win this fight. and just stay on the outside and box and pick apart Dawson and bust him up like he was doing to Dober. But I do think this is a bad matchup for him. I wish he hadn't taken this fight because he's on a good run right now. He has struggled with wrestlers in the past, but you got to give props to him, man, because he'll fight anybody. He didn't care. He took the fight with Makhachev on short notice. Just a couple weeks notice. I'm gonna pick Dawson to win by decision, but I hope Green knocks him out, man, because I'm a Green fan all the way. But I do see Dawson using his wrestling and controlling Green the whole time. And he might get a submission, he might not, but I'm going to say he wins by decision. And that's it for the picks, guys, as far as my bets go. Pull these up for you so you can see them. As far as straight up plays, man, single plays, I got a play on Montel Jackson. It's 1 unit play at minus 195. I got a underdog play on Felipe Lenz at plus 110, and that's a half unit play. And then I got a 1 unit play on Joaquin Buckley at minus 180. So there's the regular plays. I didn't do a 2-fight parlay this time. I thought about it. Usually I do, but I was going to parlay, Felipe Lenz and Kowalkiewicz together because I feel like that's a pretty good odds and whatever. But I decided against it, But I do think Carolina Kowalkiewicz is one of the better. I think she's probably a lock on this card, and it's not a bad price, minus 170. I just don't bet on women's fights all that much, So, as far as my parlays go, I got a 4-fight parlay. It's Kowalkiewicz, Lenz, Jackson, and Dober, and that's a plus 516. And then to that, I added Buckley and Pyfer, and that's plus 1,131. I'll leave them up for a second so you guys can get a good look at them if you're interested. Okay, and then to that 6-fight parlay, I added Morono and Bill Algeo, and that's plus 2,841. Leave it up for a minute. So, and then to that, the last parlay, I added Grant Dawson and aoriqileng to last, and that's a plus 6,492. And guys, like I said, y'all know if you watch the channel a lot, I don't put a whole lot on these parlays. If they're more than a 3-fight parlay, I don't ever put more than $100 on them. These big parlays, I usually just put like $50 or so. And I do have I guess I should have pulled that up for you guys so I could see it. I'll post it. I have an ongoing parlay for the card that just happened. There was a couple fights on there that are on the parlay. I've got fights from this card on the parlay, and then I've got fights from the next card after that on the parlay. So yeah, it's like a 10-fight parlay. It's got a pretty good payout. There's some lines that you guys should really consider jumping on. I'll actually show you all these fights because I'm really looking forward to the next card. But I can tell you there's some good lines on that card coming up. At least I think so. So on this card right now, you can get Jonathan Martinez as an underdog. I think he's like a plus 105 or plus 100 right now. It's good money. I think that's a pretty good play on that card. And also you can get Cameron Saman against he's taking on Christian Rodriguez. It could be a close fight, but Cameron Saman's a plus 125 underdog right now. I think that's a good price as well. I'm jumping on those, so ruining some of my next video for you guys telling you that, but that's the whole reason I do my videos early, so you guys can jump on the lines ahead of everybody else and get good prices and make more money. So, but yeah, man, please like and subscribe, guys. I really appreciate all you guys for caring what I have to say. Thank you everybody that's been posting their bets and stuff in the Facebook group. And yeah, that's it for me, guys. Y'all have a really good one, man, and